Alright, let's talk about the layers of the integument. First thing on your lab list is looking at either the epidermis and comparing that to the dermis. Now these are the two true layers of the skin, which is called your integument. And then below that you have the associated layers, and those are either called your subcutaneous layer or your hypodermis. But in either case, it's not considered part of the skin. It's more of like a fascia, a connective tissue that adheres skin to muscle type of arrangement. But when looking at this model and looking for the epidermis, it's going to be the superficial layer. It's going to be where we see the purple cells extending all the way up to the free edge, or where you would be able to touch the surface of your skin. Now here we're seeing two examples of skin. On this part of the model, we're looking at thin skin, and on this part of the model, we're looking at thick skin. And you can see that the epidermis changes considerably with the thick skin and the addition of an extra strata that will help with its toughness and keeping you protected. Now this model is separated into three sections. Two of them have hair, one does not. On this side, we're looking at just regular like hair. You can look at this as being on your arm. You can look at it being on your scalp, whatever the case may be. This section here is more indicative of the hair and the glands associated with the armpit or the groin region. And then on this end, we're looking at thick skin, which we only find at the palms of our hand and the soles of our feet. So the epidermis is the purple all the way up, all the way across the surface of our skin. Now you can see where the purple extends down in these little bumps. These are going to be called epidermal ridges, and they help adhere the epidermis to the dermis. Now the next layer is the dermis. This is going to be where all the stuff is found. If you look anywhere above the yellow and below the purple all the way across, this is going to be considered the dermis layer. And you can see that lots of different structures are found within the dermis. Here we're going to switch from a epithelial tissue to a connective tissue. It actually ranges. Sometimes it'll be a loose areolar connective, or it can be more of a dense irregular. And that's going to help give us the form, sort of the bounce and the resilience underneath our skin to help hold its shape. As we get older, the dermis starts to break down, and that's when we start to see creases and our favorites, wrinkles. Now the dermal papillae are going to be extensions of the dermis that stick up into those epidermal ridges. Now it's not these white structures here, but anywhere that the pink or peach color goes up, and then you can definitely see them on the side over here extending all the way up, is going to be like the other half of the Velcro. The epidermal ridges come down, the dermal papilla go up, and it locks these two layers of the skin together. Now with your associated layer down here being the subcutaneous, because it's below the cutaneous, or the hypodermis below the dermis, it's all going to be filled with these little yellow dots. And these dots represent adipose tissue, or specifically an adipocyte. And this is going to be your cushion layer. It just has some more features for pressure and nervous stimulus. You'll see lots of blood vessels running through it, just like you saw in the dermis, but its tissue type mainly being adipose tissue. Then we move on to the accessory structures. For sensory, we all know we can feel the hair touching your arm, or somebody will tickle you with a feather. We can feel that. It's because of these sensory receptors. The first one is going to be the tactile, or you can call it the Mesenger's corpuscle. And these are the smaller ones. They're little white bean-shaped structures with a little zigzag black line in them. These are all the tactile corpuscles, and you can see the nerve that's attached to them, or how the model is shown. Then your other type is going to be this big green thing down here. It's sort of been described as an onion. But this is going to be the lamellated corpuscle, or you can also call it the Pacinian's corpuscle. It's going to detect deeper vibrations and pressures than your tactile ones will. Moving on, probably my favorite feature on the whole integument model, it's going to be this little band of muscle underneath each hair follicle. This muscle is going to be called the erector pili muscle. There are also other names, pili erector, and so forth. You might see a little bit different in your textbook, but typically it's called the erector pili muscle. And you can see how the hair follicle is at an angle. When this muscle contracts, it's actually going to move the hair follicle in this direction. And that's what's going to give us our little goosebump on the surface. Now we have 3 different types of glands. The first gland is going to be called an apocrine gland. That's going to be this big yellow structure here. And how they slice through this, it's showing you that it has a lumen, it has a place for the duct to travel with all its secretions. Now I like to nickname the apocrine gland our stinky gland because it's the one that produces the pheromones and the stink that's in our armpit, around the nipple, and the groin region that, more specifically, the axillary region we wear deodorant for. So that's only going to be found in certain areas of the body. It does produce a thicker secretion that does have a scent associated with it. The next one's going to be the merocrine glands, and these are the smaller white ones. Notice that you can see them in all 3 areas. We sweat on our scalp, we sweat in our armpits, and we definitely get sweaty palms when we're nervous. So all of these produce a watery secretion, and when their ducts lead up to the surface, that's what we typically call the pore. So we can see that water and release from the body in efforts of cooling us down is going to be present in all types of skin. And then the last one is going to be the sebaceous gland. Here you're seeing a superficial view of the sebaceous gland. This one actually has it cut open a little bit, but in both cases they wrap around the hair follicle. And this produces an oil that's going to be squeezed out and helps coat the hair. So if you haven't washed your hair a little bit, it gets oily at the root. It's a product of the sebaceous gland. It's actually there to help moisturize and keep the hair soft rather than becoming brittle, dry, and break off. And then the last thing that you need to be able to identify is the hair follicle, and that is the extension of the purple. It's going to come down within the dermis layer, and it wraps all the way around the hair. So it's really the housing for the hair is the hair follicle. So it's really all the structure of purple and pink outside of the hair itself. And that should complete everything for the integument model.